So a couple days ago, I installed this beautiful rack from Simworks so I could start using it with the Bags by Bird bag I reviewed last week. In doing so, I had to cut the tubular stays, and I kind of stumbled upon a pretty simple and inexpensive but precise hack to cut stays. So if you're installing racks like the Ubento or even a tubeless rack, you can do it with very little money, very few tools, and do it precisely. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you love to ride bikes and chill, explore gravel roads, the supple life, you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. And if you appreciate content like this, focusing on interesting products, support the channel via PayPal, Patreon, or by buying a patch. So if you're like us and you live in an apartment and don't have a dedicated bike workshop where you can have cool tools like a vise and dedicated cutting tools, then you know it can be kind of a challenge installing things like racks. I've cut rack stays in different ways in the past. I've used everything from a dremel to a hacksaw, but we don't have those things right now with us in our current living situation. So I had to get creative and use what I had. So to cut stays with this method, it's pretty cheap. You will need two things, however. You will need a pipe cutter that will cut down to about 1/8 of an inch. We bought ours at the local Harbor Freight, and I think it costs less than 10 bucks. And you'll also need some kind of sanding block. I got these sanding block sponges because I was cutting down paint brushes so I could take them bike touring. But they also work great on metal, so go figure. For the rest of the video, let's jump to the action cam. Okay guys, so I've got the stay that I want to shorten, and I've marked it here where I want to cut it with a Sharpie. And what's beautiful about using a pipe cutter is that you can be very precise, unlike with a hacksaw where you would need a vise to hold this down and then kind of really go at it, or even with a Dremel, the cutting wheel may jump around. Using a pipe cutter works pretty well. Granted, it may ultimately ruin the cutting blade of the pipe cutter, but this thing was like less than 10 bucks. And it's also way less noisy than a Dremel, less expensive, and you're less likely to, cut your hand by accident, especially if you're working in really small increments. What I did was I opened up the pipe cutter, braced it against my leg for a second, and bring the jaw in, or bring the cutting wheel in about where you want it, just so you feel a little bit of tension. And once you have this, the trick is to prevent this from just rotating your hand, right? Because, especially if you don't have a vise. So what I did was I just took a tool or something here and used this as a grip so I could rotate and keep the tube itself from rotating around. So this is what this looks like. You could either have it stationary in the pipe cutter and just rotate the tube, or if you prefer, hold this stationary and use the pipe cutter to go around it. And as you're going around, you're doing little like quarter turns just so there's always the same consistent tension. So maybe 2 turns and then a little bit of a twist. And as you can see, it's quiet. You're not going to accidentally cut off a finger, even though you are cutting a very small bit from the end. Keep going around, getting close, so not taking very long. Filming for about 3 minutes, and I can feel like it's already going to give. Oh, and there it went. So super easy, no drama, no need to wear gloves or anything like that. So you do want to finish this. It's going to leave a bit of a burr. So this is kind of a rough edge here. It's actually fairly smooth, I'm surprised. But you do have a little bit of a nub in there, and that's where the sanding block comes in. So let's switch to that. So this is a kind of a sponge style sanding block. As you can see, it's got some give here, and I bought this originally because I was cutting down paintbrushes to take on bike, but you can also use it for this task. And basically you just want to run it through there a couple times, rotate it as I'm sanding it just to kind of round off the edges. And I think this is like a medium grit, so it's not super coarse, not super fine, but enough to kind of sand down the metal here. So the corners are looking pretty good. I'm going to focus on this little protrusion there. So that got rid of all the burrs. Even the little pointy part that was sticking out is gone. Super precise, really quiet, no danger of accidentally cutting yourself. And all you need is a sponge sanding block, and a pipe cutter. All right, guys, I hope you found that really useful. If you have any other questions, leave those in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, do you guys want to see a more in-depth review of the Obento rack? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this content, consider supporting the channel by joining us on PayPal, Patreon, or buying a patch, all that good stuff. And until next time, keep the supple side down.